to today's estate planning in today's market. Our new titled Plan Giving program at Davenport University is titled Future Plans for Tomorrow's Panther program. My name is John Hankins, and I'm Director of Major Gifts here at Davenport University. And it's my sincere pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar. We have two very distinct alumni that are going to share with us some inspiration as well as knowledge on plan giving and philanthropic impact. And so before we get started, I thought I would just do some quick little housekeeping as well as some shout outs of thanks for support. First, I wanted to thank my two colleagues on our advancement team, Whitney and Eric, on our advancement team, who are helping facilitate today's webinar with the technology. In fact, Whitney will be taking any comments and questions from our audience as we go through today's webinar. So feel free to post any of your comments or questions in the comment section, which you may say, where is that? Well, on the bottom right of your screen, you'll see a purple ribbon that has two white arrows that point to the left. Simply click on that, and you'll see on the left-hand side of that purple arrow, or that purple ribbon, I should say, a comment, a little bubble. And that is where you can post either your comment or your question throughout the webinar today. And Whitney will find time throughout the webinar to share those. Okay, so, and then also wanted to just thank our presenters today for their time. They both are working professionals, and we appreciate their time. And welcome, Michelle, for joining today's webinar as well. So first, I'd like to introduce Mark Minder. Previous slide, please. Mark Minder is a 1996 alum from Davenport University. Mark received his bachelor's in business management from Davenport, and then he came back to Davenport University and received his MBA just 2 years ago in 2018. Mark works for Darden Wealth Group as VP of Retirement Plans and Benefits in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So he is going to be our keynote speaker today on estate planning in today's market. Secondly, we're going to have some inspiration around what it means to be a recipient of philanthropy. And Zoe Hoffman knows what that's all about. She actually interned as a student the past 2 years before graduating this past spring in 2020 from Davenport University with her bachelor's in business administration. She interned in our own advancement office, doing a variety of fundraising administrative support tasks. She currently works down in Youngstown, Ohio as a loan processing assistant for PNC Bank. So Zoe is going to share with us what it meant to be a scholarship recipient through the Jackie Taylor Study Abroad Scholarship. So welcome, Zoe, and welcome, Mark. Next slide, please. So just a quick overview of what to expect over the next 45 minutes. I'm going to share a quick little update on where Davenport is today. Folks on the call may be more familiar with what Davenport was back on Fulton Street in downtown Grand Rapids versus today. I'm going to quickly go over our Vision 2025, what that means for some of our goals over the next 5 years. Mark Minder, as I mentioned, is our keynote speaker today, and so he's going to be talking about plan giving in today's market. Zoe Hoffman, our 2020 alum, is going to be talking about the impact that she received through the Jackie Taylor Study Abroad Scholarship and how that's transformed her life today as a working adult. And then we're going to transition to what does plan giving look like through Davenport University today. We have a revamped web page that we'll show you, and then we'll provide some Q&A, an opportunity for you guys to share your comments and questions and kind of get at the meat of all this. So next slide, please. Many of you may not have had a chance to even come out to Caledonia to our campus that was built 20 years ago. Perhaps your experience has been only on Fulton Street. As we all know, Davenport started, 150 plus years ago on Fulton Street in downtown Grand Rapids, and associate's degrees was the common way in which people received their education through business degrees, through a 2-year educational experience. Well, that changed about 20 years ago when Davenport started transitioning away from being a for-profit college and more of a nonprofit college, and really looking at being a 4-year degree university. Today we have 35 actual degree programs that are undergraduate degree programs. And so it's pretty remarkable to see the growth just in the last 10, 15 years. There's actually 5 campuses throughout the state of Michigan. While West Michigan is still home to Davenport University, we have presence in Southeast Michigan, in Warren and downtown Detroit, Lansing, Midland, as well as Grand Rapids and Holland. And so we have approximately 6,500 students today. Half of them are, say, the adult age students, where we kind of our roots began back in the day. And today, half of our student audience are also more traditional age, 18 to 22-year-olds, so the high school graduates that are going straight to college. So we are a unique university today, and we pride ourselves on being the second most affordable private college in the state of Michigan. And we couldn't do what we do every day without the philanthropic support of many of you that are on this call today. So thank you for being here today to learn a little bit more about where we are trying to go. And as you know, with colleges, universities, every 5 years there's a new vision, if you will, and Davenport is very good each 5 years at setting that new vision. And so we just recently reflected on our Vision 2020, and we are really proud to share with you today that our retention increased by 5% from 71% to 76% student retention. Which is just remarkable if you look back at, say, 15, 20 years ago, when we were still trying to build into a 4-year university, and moving away from associate's degrees to 4-year programs. And so that's a huge milestone for us. And as we move to Vision 2025, we have a lofty goal of trying to achieve 81% student retention. And so that's a very exciting goal for all of us, students, faculty, staff. And so in addition to that, we are also looking at urban education as a way to embrace the direction in which education is moving in our urban communities. And so in our last campaign, many of you are familiar with the last capital campaign that we had. Urban education was one of the 3 pillars, main focus areas. And that was something that we launched through the Grand Rapids Public Schools. And we are very humbled by the success of that. And so essentially urban education looks at the last 5-6 years, master's degrees for urban teachers in Grand Rapids Public Schools. And so these teachers are able to not only increase their wages from, say, roughly $42,000 a year to low 50s per year in income, but also cultural competencies. And so we all know that today's challenges that teachers are dealing with youth is much more challenging. Kids are coming in to the classrooms in situations where their parent or parents may have been homeless the day before. And so how do we combat the teachers to facilitate today's challenges? And so we provide a mentor for 11 months during a 2-year master's degree program. And so it's a very hands-on program that advances their abilities in a very quick turnaround period. And so we're super excited about the retention as well for these teachers and what they're able to do by staying within their school districts. As we all know, urban teachers have a pretty large turnover nationally. And so that's a really exciting program. And what we're doing in Vision 2025 is introducing, in addition to the master's degree, an undergraduate degree. And so that'll help attract new talent. And we're specifically going to focus on STEM education, so science, technology, engineering, and math. As many of you know, that's something that in the middle schools today, they're really focusing on that, especially when we think of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and making sure that we're looking at students of color and including everyone in our ability to educate all. And so I think that urban ed will play a major role in our Vision 2025. Lastly, before we get into today's webinar, just wanted to let you know that we're very, very proud of our ability, and this hasn't changed, honestly, since many of you were at Davenport, and that's our focus on working with the business community from a market-driven research standpoint. Dr. Pappas, Rick Pappas, our president, was brilliant years ago when he decided to hire someone to do market intelligence in the last 10 years. And so we're able to turn around new degrees in less than 90 days. And that's just unbelievable. And so we're able to really understand the market and help students that are coming in, whether they're adults or 18 to 22-year-olds, as we say, get where the world is going. And so without further ado, I would like to introduce Mark Minder to get us into the meat and potatoes of today's webinar. Mark?
Thanks, John. So we're going to be flying in at, sorry, hit too quick there, probably 30,000 feet, as I like to say, on plan giving today's market. Three main things, and they're all actually intertwined, is we have how COVID-19 is impacting estate planning today, new IRA limitations for heirs, and wealth transfer. All three actually are intertwined. So even though they're different subjects, they are reliant on each other. One of the biggest things that happened before 2020 was the Secure Act was signed, and it actually stands for Setting Every Community Up for Retirement Enhancement. It was actually built to help the average American and business owners prepare for retirement. But there was some unique parts of this bill that went through that impacted IRAs and estate planning overall. And like I said, this was probably forgotten starting March of this year due to everything that we started facing. So one of the biggest changes that are hitting our retirees is required minimum distributions. And for starting in 2020, if you turned 70 and a half this year, you no longer had to take it at that age. It began, you could delay your required minimum distribution until age 72. If you turned 70 and a half in 2019 or earlier, you still had to continue taking your required minimum distribution. This, of course, was waived due to COVID-19 for 2020. One unique thing I do like to share with our clients and individuals as they're planning is we have multiple clients that they have built up an estate. They don't need money. The biggest question we get is, Mark, what do we do with this money? And we've set up for a lot of our clients where they can do qualified charitable gifts out of their IRAs to meet their required minimum distributions. One of my very good clients, he gives it to his alma mater every year. So we split his required minimum distribution in half. He takes half of it. Him and his wife take a vacation, and the other half goes to his alma mater. He's very proud, as he said, he's a farm boy, ended up working at Texas Instruments and actually has a couple of patents. So he loves that he can provide for his alma mater on a continual basis. Probably one of the biggest impacts for estate planning that we're seeing that came out of the Secure Act was the stretch IRA. Under the old rules of an IRA, your beneficiary at your passing could extend the distributions over their life expectancy. So what this could mean is if you had a beneficiary that was 20, 22 years old, it could make that IRA last until what the charts from the IRS said, which could be up to 50 years. This is how we heard the old term stretch IRA, multiple generational planning. Starting this year, there was a 10-year rule put in place for non-eligible designated beneficiaries. Next slide, I'll show you who those are or not. For non-eligible designated beneficiaries, they must distribute the account within 10 years. That doesn't mean they have to take it every year for the next 10 years. They just have to take it out within 10 years. If they wanted to wait until year 9 3/4, that is when they can take all of that money out. So there is a little bit of flexibility. The main driver is if you're a non-designated beneficiary, that money has to be distributed out of the IRA to your beneficiaries. So as we look at that, the stretch IRA, the new rule doesn't apply for the following people. If you're a spouse, that money goes directly to your spouse. No problem there. The next two is defined by IRS code. So this is disabled beneficiaries and those that are chronically ill. So if you have a beneficiary that's disabled permanently, or those that are chronically ill, they do not need to take the money out over the 10-year time period. Individuals who are not more than 10 years younger than the deceased doesn't apply to them. Certain minor children. So we do actually have some clients that have named minor children, be it grandchildren, nephews, nieces, depending on the family. They have named them as their primary beneficiary. We'll talk about pros and cons of that at a later day. But if they were to pass, that child then doesn't have to take that money out until they reach the age of majority. Here in the state of Michigan, the age of majority is actually age 18. So if you have a minor child as a beneficiary and they're 12, they actually have 6 years plus then the clock starts ticking once they reach age 18. So in theory, if they are 12, they have until 16 years to take that money out. That's when they have to take it. And if there's any questions, you can ask the chat. I hate hearing myself talk all the time. So if anybody wants to type in a question, I'm more glad to take questions as I'm talking. One of the biggest things we've seen as we've gone through this year, as we've done reviews with our clients and continually contacting, is their need to review their estate plan. A lot of plans, as most of us do, and we do them usually when there's a major life event, marriage, children, passing of a loved one. There's usually something that basically spurs us on to plan for our demise, for lack of a better term. But through this, there has been some need to start reviewing estate plans now. A couple of reasons that we've been looking at it is, one, there's lower valuations of our assets, not just our investment portfolios, which those have rebounded, depending on how you're invested, but our hard assets. If you own real estate, land, things that are not liquid, is what you like to say. Those have dropped in valuations in certain parts of the country and certain assets. So it might make sense to review how those are getting. We are at historically low interest rates. When we say historically low, I've never seen them in my 25 plus year career. I don't think I'll see these again over the next 25 years once we get out of this. So this gives us some opportunity for giving through charitable remainder trusts, things along that line. And of course, as we all know, within 22 days, there is a possibility of change in DC, not only at the White House, but in Congress. So that could change how tax codes are written, or things along that line, especially as we look at plan giving. So unless there's congressional action, this is one of the biggest things that nobody's talking about. There's actually the gift and estate tax right now is $23.1 million that you can gift over your lifetime as a married couple. If the Congress does not act in January of 2026, so short 6 years from now, it will revert back to approximately $6.8 million over which would be your lifetime exemption as a gifting tax. So this is something that we're looking at as we deal with our clients, that we feel we need to stay on top of this. These are interesting times across the board, and now is the time to maintain our estate plan. Our viewpoint is an estate plan is a living, breathing document. So we like to tell our clients review them every couple of years to make sure it's meeting its needs. So factors to consider when you are reviewing your estate plan. First, it is your your personal financial plan. We need to review your cash flow needs and your goals. The estate plan, we always tell our clients, like, it has to meet your lifestyle and your needs. We do have some clients and some people set up their estate plan to meet the lifestyle or their needs of their loved ones. Our main concern is that you're being taken care of, especially as we live longer in life. The low interest rates, as we stated, we're in historically low interest rate markets. With that, there is a beneficial way to transfer your assets into an annuity or a note that pays you a fixed monthly, quarterly, however the payment is, dollar flow for you. This allows you to create that cash flow, meeting your personal needs, making sure that the money then is left for who you want to leave it to loved ones or charitable organizations or your alma mater. Major factor to consider, I probably should have put this number one, honestly, is family. Is gifting of assets. You want to make sure it keeps the family harmonious. And there's a lot of issues when money is changing hands of who wants what. And if you own a business, one of the biggest things is that your estate plan meets your succession plan or your wanted succession plan for a business. We have dealt with multiple business owners where there has been passing unexpectedly. The succession plan wasn't ironed out completely, and we have seen families, brothers and children argue over who controls the business, to the point we actually had one business where they dissolved the business and they split it up because they could not decide on who was going to be driving the machine, which is very painful to go through as watching a family go through that. And probably one of the biggest things, I would say for estate planning, this is the one everybody focuses on. For us, taxes is a nebulous thing. We know where we are today on the tax code. We don't know where we're going to be 5 years from now on the tax code. Currently, when someone passes, assets get a step-up cost basis. So that means if you own Amazon and it's trading at $2,000, you bought it at $100, and you pass, and then Amazon stock goes to your heir, they get it at where it's trading at its current value. So they would get it at $2,000. So that means they only have capital gains. They don't pay capital gains on above $2,000. So that's a benefit on that part. Assets that are gifted. So in other words, you gift 100 shares of Amazon stock to your loved one. They don't get the step-up basis. So you gift 100 shares of Amazon to your loved one, to your school, to the Humane Society. Their cost basis would be $100, and they would have to deal with the tax consequences, capital gains on that. So those are things you want to look at as you start considering how your estate plan is living and breathing and reviewing it. Next steps in your estate plan is, probably heard me say 4 or 5 times already, is review your estate plan. It's just a simple review of what will take place in the event of passing. And this probably should have been added, even in your incapacity. We're seeing that more and more with our clients. When I first entered the industry, somebody would enter a care facility, average stay was 13 months. We are now seeing our clients in our industry, average stay of a person going to a care facility is creeping up to 8 to 10 years. So that means you're incapacitated, but you still have income needs and your needs and wants. You still want those met, but you're still physically living. So that's the estate plan. That's why we say it's a living and breathing document. It's not just now when you pass, but what happens if you become incapacitated also. Does your plan achieve your goals? What legacy do you want to leave? What's important to you? That is the biggest thing I always tell people. Having this working 20, 40, 50 years, building this great nest egg, providing for your loved ones. What's the thing that you want people to remember? Do you want them to remember you gave them Amazon, or do you want to leave a lasting legacy of what you've done in life? Need to coordinate your personal financial plan and your estate plan. Your individual cash flow needs, wealth preservation, exit strategies if you're business owners. Estate plan has to encompass all of this. You got to make sure it's covering all your bases and that there's nothing left uncovered. And believe it or not, the hardest thing that we see a lot of people do is implement your estate plan. We have had multiple clients, and we actually had one client where they went through the whole process, drew up a pretty in-depth estate plan, applied for a tax ID number, but never put anything in that under that number or put the assets under the correct titled name. And they were going into a care facility. So the family was scrambling on how to get everything put into the right order. It was difficult. We got a good portion of it since they did have the tax ID number. At least they did do that. There was good reasoning for us to get a lot of it put into the right estate planning title. But there were certain assets we just could not touch due to we needed their signatures, and their signatures, since they were incapacitated, could not be taken. So that is one of the biggest things take away is when you get your estate plan, implement it. And not only just have the document, but put the document to work. So wealth transfer. Over the next 20 to 30 years, we're going to see one of the largest wealth being transferred from one generation to another. They estimate it's going to be $60 trillion alone in the United States. So this money is going to be passing to heirs, loved ones, where the baby boomer is, because that's who's got these assets, where they want this money to go. So there is a lot of planning to be needed. Not only how do you transfer the money, also how do you receive the money? That's probably the biggest issues we're facing nowadays. Is a lot of this money is going to be passed along to generation even younger than me. And the thing that we're seeing is the younger generation, they have two things against them. One, they typically are having a higher debt load than, of course, their parents or their grandparents. And two, they have not saved due to whatever reasons. Some is the debt load. Some is it, as you know, in my career, we've gone through 3 major financial issues. And this has scared people, to be honest, from saving properly. So how they receive the assets, education, but also you want to make sure the money's transferred properly. And they're just not handed a pile of cash sometimes. Not only is there tax consequences, but there's the human factor. What makes most sense to transfer those assets? One of the biggest things and what I talked about on a previous slide is you could put it into an annuity or a note. One of the easiest ways to do that is what we call charitable remainder trust. The way to look at this is any money, any assets you put in this, it's irrevocable. You can't go back and change. It's in that mythical lockbox. So this can be set up for a loved one, for any of your heirs. Also can be set up, this is where it's nice, is your loved ones, your heirs, your beneficiaries, they get an income stream. You can dictate with this charitable remainder trust how much this income stream is and how long this income stream lasts. You typically has to be at least a 5% minimum of what the trust is worth. Then you can set it up where your heirs can receive this money for 10 years, for 20 years, for their life. So it gives you a lot of flexibility that way. The nice thing is then where you can meet multiple goals and leave your legacy is after that time has passed and your heirs have passed, the assets that are left are distributed to the charitable organizations that you want to leave a legacy and have a huge impact with. So this helps you make sure your loved ones are being taken care of. At the same time, the things that make you want to smile at the end of the day beyond your family, the things that mean a lot to you are being taken care of also. So a couple of key points to remember as I try to wrap this up. Like I said, I was flying at 30,000 feet with wealth transfer IRAs and stretch IRAs. Required minimum distributions, you do not need to take them in 2020. If you already took them, there are ways to reverse them. I just have to talk to where your assets are held. If you turn 70 and a half this year or later, you don't have to start them until 72. And once again, if you don't need that money, which is a good problem to have, you can always leave it to that charitable organization. You can give it to charitable organizations that you have. Main key there is they have to be 501c, organizations, which is most educational, most nonprofits, religious organizations, things along that line. Stretch IRA, believe it or not, check your beneficiaries. A lot of clients don't update that beneficiary form. We've seen clients have divorces, deaths, you name it, and the beneficiary's never been updated. One of the biggest things is communicate your wishes to a trusted person. Nothing's worse than everybody being surprised. So there's typically that one person, real close friend, loved one, trusted advisor that knows what your wishes are and communicate with that. Also, we recommend in that communication, it's not a bad idea. We joke it's when you pass, nobody can yell at you. Leave a letter in your lockbox or in your document, expressing your wishes to everybody. I actually have one in place myself. It's that last letter of "I love you, but here's what I want" letter. So those are always good to see. State plan, like we said, review it every 2 to 3 years so it meets your wants and needs. It's a living, breathing document. It's just not a piece of paper you put in your filing cabinet and forget about. Implement the documents. I can't say that enough. You get an estate plan, put it to work. Get the assets that need to be put into trust in trust form. Wealth transfer, remember, you can help the loved ones and the causes that are important to you. So you can have your cake and eat it too. And lastly, what legacy do you want to leave? As I bluntly tell my clients, having a pile of cash is not our ultimate goal in life. It's what do we want to do? What do we want? As I tell them, what do I want people to remember Mark for doing? That is probably the biggest things that we can do within our lives is who do we want to impact and how can we impact them? I thank you for taking the time to listen to me. John's gonna be talking more and or my fellow alum will be talking more, but it's been a pleasure speaking with you. As a proud alum, as somebody that actually entered this industry because of Davenport University, I hope that you can see, this was useful for you. Thanks for your time, John, and I look forward to hearing for the rest of the seminar.
Mark, thank you so much. And as folks on this webinar can tell, we are very grateful for his leadership as a continued advocate for Davenport's mission. Mark does a wonderful job serving on our alumni board, and he's just a wealth of information. So don't go anywhere, Mark. We will be looking to you for the Q&A here shortly. So thanks again.
So I'm still here.
Yeah, I know. So now I'd like to transition to our next speaker in Zoe Hoffman. Zoe comes to us, as I mentioned earlier in our introductions. She is a 2020 alum. She received her bachelor's in business administration in 2020 from Davenport University and currently works for PNC Bank. And she just is a shining star, a total work, I don't want to say workaholic. She's a go-getter. And she worked in our advancement office for 2 years, assisting with whatever needed to be done. And she's a proud recipient of the Jackie Taylor Endowed Scholarship, which helps students in their study abroad. And so she's going to talk to us today about how that transformed her journey through Davenport and into her career. One quick thing about Zoe, she also was on the cheer team and won a national championship, NCAA Division II national championship in the 1920 season at Davenport. So without further ado, here's Zoe.
Thanks, John, for that introduction. I am really grateful to be here and talking with you all and just sharing my experience. I am so grateful for Jackie Taylor and her scholarship. I had the opportunity to meet her as well before and after my experience, actually, so she got to interact with me too. But that allowed me to take the opportunity to study abroad in Costa Rica. During my time there, I took Spanish classes as well as an international business class. We spent 3 weeks there living in Costa Rica, and we also had a really great opportunity to volunteer with orphan children in a home. So we went in there every day and we just got to do activities with them, teach them a little bit of English, play with them, take them to the park, and just living there with host families, being immersed in that culture, taking my courses, it really opened my eyes to what the world is. And I think it's really important today because America, like our world, is so vastly diverse and we're going through all these challenges. But this experience taught me how to kind of understand the world, take a step back and learn about other cultures, learn how they work, learn how to understand them and adapt to their culture as well. Just my entire time there really empowered me to grow as a person and continue to grow as an individual. I was so inspired by my time there and being able to work with kids that when I came back from my experience, I had just kind of decided to start my own fundraising campaign, which allowed me to use my business degree, my classes, things that I've learned over time to raise money for these kids here and then send donations and a pretty high monetary amount overachieving my goal that I had to send down to them to help those orphans so they can live the life that they want to. So just having that experience, there's no way that I would have been able to do that without the Jackie Taylor Scholarship and some of the other scholarships that I received just to be able to attend Davenport and attend a university that has such an amazing community and so much support for its students going forward into their lives. I'm just incredibly honored from it. I think that receiving those donations and a lot of students that I know, it really helps impact how we can grow into the people that we are today. And now I have a great job. I'm really continuing to grow, continuing to develop myself, and learning more about the worldview and applying my skills, my experience from studying abroad into real life and trying to make a difference in real life. So I think when you're thinking about giving donations and doing your investments, really think about that because you are giving into students like me, students that I know currently, and just future generations down the line, that you're giving them that opportunity to have these incredible experiences, whether it's studying abroad or just being able to go to college and get those experiences, get that education. You're helping develop the world going forward. And like Davenport says, getting where the world is going. It's just an incredible opportunity for a student to be able to have extra funding and extra resources to build upon their education and grow further into their lives.
That's unbelievable. I'm speechless, Zoe. You are amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your story with today's webinar with our guests. And yeah, keep doing great things down there. Okay.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Jen.
Yeah, we'll have to, when things open up, we'll have to get together soon. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Take care. All right. Next slide. Okay, so as I mentioned at the beginning, traditionally, when individuals make a planned gift at Davenport University of $5,000 or greater, those individuals would join our what we called Legacy Society. Today, we're revamping the name of that, and we're calling it Future Plans for Tomorrow's Panther Program. And essentially, we're wanting to create more relevance for you, for our students, for the mission of Davenport. And we wanted to share the exciting new homepage that we have developed. And what's really cool, as I mentioned earlier with the market intelligence and really trying to help our students get the jobs that are going to be in demand 3-4 years from now, we actually looked to donors like you in the last 6 months during this COVID period, who either have or have not made planned gifts, but have clearly been solicited by colleges, either their alma maters or not, around planned giving across the country, and said, what do you think about this new page? What are your thoughts about this? And so we showed this to them through Zoom calls and got some really good feedback. And essentially the key word was simplicity. They really liked hearing how, there's donor testimonials when you first come into the page, why people are moved to make a planned gift at Davenport, and what they can do today to establish themselves as a planned giving donor. And so the what needs to be very simple in today's world moving forward. And so one of the most common forms of planned giving, over 75% of planned giving donors in the US make bequests. Bequests don't require any cash up front. It talks about it here in some of the text. And it's revocable. It's something that can change during your lifetime. And it's added through your estate plan. There's other types of information in here on this homepage. In other words, there's information about the CARES Act and how you can benefit by making donations this year in 2020 due to the CARES Act. And as you continually scroll down here, there's information on how to learn more through our team and to get engaged with us. And when you scroll down further, there's additional testimonials from people like Keith Klingenberg, who's on the bottom left here, who's also on our alumni board. He's the chair of our alumni board with Mark Minder, who you just heard from. And so, testimonials are really important so that you can hear from other people, like-minded people around, why would I want to consider doing something like this? So with this said, we can go ahead and close this out and move into our Q&A. And we thought we would start the discussion. And please send your questions through the chat. And just as a reminder, the bottom right of your screen, there's a purple ribbon there with 2 white arrows to the left. Simply click on that and you'll see a bubble on the left that's for chat. You just type in your questions there. No question is the wrong question. We will take any question you got. Maybe it's just a comment that you had about today's webinar. We would love to hear from you. But I will start with the first question. What if I make a planned gift and I don't go through my estate plan? Is that possible? I get that question from time to time with donors like you. Absolutely. You can add Davenport University as a beneficiary. You can do that. Typically people have life insurance policies where they can add Davenport as a beneficiary to a life policy, especially as people are aging. They may have a life policy that they, at one point when they were younger, they had included that for their children. Perhaps their children, they may not, depending on their situation, they may not need that, depending on their situation. They can add Davenport. Another option, if life insurance is not an option, gift annuities can be advantageous to certain donors. And those are not something that an estate planning process is needed for. So it really depends on the individual. As Mark mentioned earlier, it's a completely individualized process with plan giving, but we want to make sure that it's a flexible process for you. So let's throw out some more questions. A second question, Mark, do you want to lead with a question or should I go to another one?
I would say probably one of the biggest questions we do receive from clients is, unless it's charitable remainder trust, where it's irrevocable, is we have a lot of our clients go, Mark, if I make this decision, can I change it? And most definitely, unless it's in a charitable remainder trust, your beneficiaries, who you want to leave money to, your heirs, your loved ones, whatever charitable organizations, can I change that? And yes, that's why I've always said it's a living, breathing document. It's your wants, it's your needs, it's your goals, and things happen. And who you want to leave your money to can change. So it's not in the lockbox unless it's in a CRT. Even with the CRT, there is some flexibility of charity who you can do that with. So once again, that can even be as flexible as you want it. So that's one of the biggest things. Also, one things that we do get asked is if they take money out of their IRA for the required minimum distribution, they do a qualified gift from there. You don't get taxed on it, so you avoid the taxes, which is a nice benefit. Plus the charity that you give it to, so you give that money to Davenport University. Davenport doesn't have to pay taxes on that money either. So that's a huge benefit if you want to see some of the fruits of your labor while you can enjoy seeing it. So those are two of the biggest questions we get a lot of times from clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Another one that we've received twice in the last maybe 3-4 months is individuals that have established relationships with local community foundations. So they may have already established a donor advised fund, or perhaps they've already put together their estate plan and housed it within a community foundation where their plan is already set up in terms of who they want to earmark percentage-wise their estate to from a philanthropic standpoint when they pass away. and their question was, can we still give to Davenport even though we're going through the community foundation? And the answer is yes. So we are considered a third party, and so we just essentially let the donor continue to work directly through the community foundation, and we are added as a beneficiary through their own paperwork housed within the community foundation. And so they continue as is with their direct relationship, and we're just the third party beneficiary. What else? Are there any other questions, Whitney, that have been posed in the chat?
Not at this time.
Okay. Let's see, what else? What are the benefits to joining this plan giving group at Davenport? Well, your naming in perpetuity is a beautiful thing. In other words, and that's your choice. I worked recently with a donor who wants to be anonymous, and so this person doesn't have an interest in having their name on a wall, but a lot of people, that's something that's really important to them. And so we honor the choice of each donor. And so we have a wall on our main campus in Caledonia, and that houses every decade this group of plan giving individuals. And so there's a fellowship there, if you will. And as we move out of COVID, there'll be future events where we get together as a group, be it a dinner, hear from more scholarship recipients like Zoe, who you heard from, and have a chance to get together and share stories. And so having your name on a wall, that might be something of interest, and that never goes away. You also maximize your giving by minimizing the net cost of your gift when you make a planned gift. And as Mark said, each planned giving tool is unique, but depending on the gift itself, there's opportunities that can be tax saving depending on what the strategy is. And so we always say in our advancement office, seek further guidance from people like Mark, who are financial planners, as well as your attorney. But there can be some pretty substantial tax savings involved. So, yeah. Well, it's 12:50, and if we don't have any other questions, I'm always a big fan of getting people out earlier than later. And I know that I kind of went over on my time. I meant to be at 5 minutes, and I went a little longer. So did you have any other questions or things you want to share, Mark?
No, I think we've touched on a lot of the high level gifting ideas and how to plan for your estate.
Okay. Great. All right. Well, we thank the audience for being here today and participating in this fall webinar on estate planning in today's market. We hope that you found this information relevant and helpful as you continue to venture through making plans for your future and thinking of Davenport University as you have in the past and continue to in your future. And we are grateful for everything you have done and continue to do in the future. Like I mentioned earlier, we can't do what we do every day without your dedicated support. So thank you for being here today. Take care.